Good evening and welcome to the Affirmation LGBT Mormons, Families and Friends Chicago Chapters Wednesday Devotional. My name is Melissa Malcolm King and I will be presenting with you this evening. Melissa Malcolm King is an aspiring writer whose current projects include a monthly exhibition for Exponent magazine, content coordinator for Affirmation LGBTQ Mormons, Families and Friends Chicago chapter, and Curl Connection, a natural hair care social media group. As a native Long Islander and a new contributor to Innovision magazine, Melissa is excited to embark on this next adventure in her writing career. As a queer person of color, Melissa Malcolm is an advocate for LGBTQ plus rights and is on various planning and leadership boards throughout the continental United States, including Affirmation LGBT, Mormons, Families and Friends, People of Color Leader, and the president of Asexuals of Utah. In addition, Melissa Malcolm runs a non-for-profit entitled Project Be Safe, bridging the education of and safety and awareness in female empowerment. Project Be Safe's mission is twofold: providing resources and outlets and escape for women surviving domestic violence, and to empower women and other marginalized groups to climb out of despair into a place of hope. As a survivor of abuse, Melissa Malcolm has appeared on multiple panels for We Brave Women to advocate for survivor rights and to discuss the intersection of being a queer, disabled person of color. Melissa Malcolm's other passions include teaching first aid, CPR classes, and emergency preparedness classes, promoting advocacy for the unsheltered and marginalized. Melissa Malcolm is a special education teacher and supports inclusion in the community as a proud and active member of the Disability Rights Activist Committee. Good evening, and I welcome you to a diary of a mad, black, queer woman. Throughout life, we only get but a moment to gaze into the book of the soul. It is this book, the book of the heart, that contains our most sacred connections, experiences, sorrows, and joys. My sister, Maya Angelou, proudly proclaimed, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you." Tonight, following our reflective prose, I will share my sentiments with an invitation to not only listen, but to add to the book of others and allow others the same privilege to do to you. Opening reflection. Said Mahatma Gandhi, "The golden way to be with friends, with the world, and to regard the whole human family like," repeat, "the golden way is to be friends with the world and to regard the whole human family like members of one family." Mahatma Gandhi. Regard your neighbor's gain as your gain and your neighbor's loss as your loss. Tahao, Shahai, Kayim, Hayim, Taoism. We are as much alive as we keep the earth alive. Chief Dan George. The rule of life is to guard and to do by things of others as they do on their own. Hinduism. The highest aim and sense of human life is the striving to attain the welfare of one's neighbor. G.I. Grf. The most important influence is a neighbor's willingness to act when needed for one another's benefit, and particularly for the benefit of one another's children. Dr. Felton Earls, Harvard School of Public Health. We cannot all do great things, but we can do small things with great love. Mother Teresa. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give. Khalid Gibran. The golden rule will reconcile capital and labor, all political contention and uproar, and selfishness and greed. Jordan Parker, preacher. Joseph Parker, preacher. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is fulfilling of the law. The New Testament, Romans, chapter 13, verses 9 and 10. One should seek for others the happiness one desires oneself. Buddhism. And as we gather here today, I conclude the opening reflection with the words of Rumi. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have been broken. Your vow 1,000 times. Come yet again. Come, come. Now, let's enter into the diary of a mad, black, queer woman. Chapter 1. Acceptance. Dear Diary, to accept myself in full authenticity does not come without fear or trepidation. It comes with the realization that I am more than my circumstance, more than the titles I was born into, more than the marginalization of my people, the misogyny masked as minimal equity, and the misconception that I am not enough. It is instead the power to nurture my divine being and to allow my voice to stand like a priceless diamond when the world casts me away like a trinket. My authenticity should not be a threat to humanity, a cause to be shattered from eternity, nor ripped away like a scab on a festering sore. My authenticity is a secret weapon that I will not put down or surrender. Chapter 2, Colorblind. Dear Diary, people of color come in many beautiful shades and from different cultures, a fact which should be celebrated. Society cannot claim to embrace or celebrate diversity until they can recognize its value. Supposed colorblindness infers that there is something wrong with my color or my culture. The claim behind colorblindness infers that there is something wrong. Oh, the claim behind colorblindness is that people do not see color, and that this is a lie to make non-people of color feel less guilty. It has nothing to do with unity or acceptance or inclusion. To claim that I don't see color is erasure. Please do not make me invisible. I am here. Once again, I am here. Please do not wet me with intolerance because the smoke of my fire burns your eyes. I am not broken. I am beautiful. I am here. I am color. Don't you see me? Chapter 3. Injustice for one, injustice for all. Dear Diary, as a person at many intersections, I find it interesting that those who are marginalized by society often turn their backs on those who are suffering. If one group of people has a lack of human rights, then society as a whole is responsible to restore that which is broken. On one hand, you cannot claim to support Black Lives Matter movement while ignoring the murder of our trans men and trans women. On the other, you cannot claim to support the rights of LGBTQ plus community and then say people of color are overreacting to police brutality. You are either for change in inequality or you are not. There simply is no gray area. Do not dissolve my intersectionality into a puddle of assimilation. I do not apologize for any part of who I am, and I'm not requesting your approval. to proceed. Chapter 4, Performative Allyship. Dear Diary, participating in a protest is great, but it is not enough. Fundraising for marginalized group of people is helpful, but it is not enough. I am calling for so much more because there is so much more work to be done. I am calling for allies, supporters, and my people to rise up together. Do not linger in silence any longer. Call out racism, prejudice, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, ageism, and all forms of injustice. Do not limit your outrage to the cause of the moment, but rather channel it towards effecting the change in the world, one small act at a time. It begins by looking within and facing personal biases. It begins by apologizing for what you did not know and making a choice today to stand for positive changes. It begins by reaching out and developing the community where you stand. It begins by not ignoring the suffering of others while requiring the wounded to remain silent. It begins by having those in spaces of privilege actively listen and support the marginalized. It begins by realizing that the plight of the other is actually the plight of humanity. It is now time for our closing reflection by Mother Teresa. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. Will you cast a stone for me? Will you cast a stone for inequity? Will you cast a stone for change? Will you cast a stone today? And to conclude our closing meditation, I will be reading a poem I wrote called I Am. I am not your mistake. I am not your error. I am not your homophobia. I am not your bigotry. I am not your hate. I am not your transphobia. I am not your Islamophobia. I am not your anti Semitism. I am not your immigration. I am not your ignorance. I am not your injustice. I am not your intolerance. I am not your ableism. I am not your tokenism. I am not your sexism. I am not your prejudice. I am not your stereotype. I am not your poverty. I am not your refuge. I am not your answer. I am not your question. I am not your reason why. I am not your reason why not. I am your worst nightmare. I am authentically me. Thank you for watching the Affirmation Chicago Wednesday devotional with us. We hope that you will stay tuned and watch us again next week. Have a good evening and good night.